Mr. Baker took the stand. Clean record. That's not me. What the state is trying to prove to you, that's not me. Brother, you in the wrong jurisdiction. This ain't Atlanta. This ain't New Orleans. You in Houston County, 51% white. I'm not saying just because it's white, they're going to vote guilty, but I got to think a lot of people out of touch with rap culture. A lot of people can't identify with a video. A lot of folks ain't going to ask a question, well, golly, is it really a real gun?
Call your first witness. I got Kenneth Willis. He bought his business, he gon' take it the distance. Listen, he giving gaming, believing high level representation. Call your first witness. Yeah, call your first witness.
Griff has been paid for this endorsement.
What's good, what's good, what's good, beautiful people? Welcome to another episode of Call Your First Witness. It's your boy K Will checking in. Thank you for being here today. As always, I'm thrilled to be here. I think I got a good show for you. Glad you tuned in. I appreciate your support. I'm seeing the love. Can't never get enough of it. Just wanted to show you my appreciation. How y'all doing? How y'all feeling? How your week going? Hope so far you had a good week. Man, let's jump right into this. Listen, I told y'all I'll be coming back on the YSL Young Thug trial. One of the new developments that I kind of wanted to spend some time on is a new case came down by the Georgia Supreme Court that has a lot to do with the YSL trial. The new decision from the Georgia Supreme Court as it relates to another case, Morgan Baker, it's not a ruling from the YSL Young Thug trial, but it has a lot to do with what's going on in this YSL trial. And so I want to kind of unpack the ruling in that case, how it affects the ruling in this YSL case. And let's just talk about it. Let's talk about it. So Brian Steele, Young Thug's lawyer, filed a motion in limine, right? I mean, this motion is pending right now, and he filed it with the court. Now, basically, a motion in limine is essentially a motion requesting the court to preclude certain evidence, right? If there's an issue with evidence that the state intends to prove, and the state can actually file these motions. So both sides can file this motion. So if, for example, if there's evidence that the state intends to present to the jury that has a likelihood of a prejudicial effect on the defendant, the state can move for what we call a motion in limine to preclude that evidence from coming in. And what happens is there's a hearing outside of the presence of the jury, and arguments are made, and the judge makes a decision. Can that evidence come in, or should it be precluded? And so in this particular case, Brian Steele is making no new argument, right? Out the gate, when this case started, Brian Steele made it very, very clear we should not even be in court. His client, Jeffrey Williams, known as Young Thug, is on trial, and Mr. Steele is asserting that the basis of this trial is Mr. Williams' lyrics, right? That's no secret at this point. We understand that Young Thug is on trial. His lyrics will be used by the state. Adrian Love, the prosecutor, has itemized specific lyrics that were used in songs, and she is alleging that those lyrics are not just make-believe. It's not just a fabrication of real life. It is true events that happened in Young Thug's life. And so that's the essence of this case. I mean, of course, it's a RICO case. We're talking about a street gang, YSL, and essentially the state has presented about 82 acts that they intend to prove were committed in the furtherance of the street gang to protect and preserve the power of this street gang, according to the state. Mr. Steele has always made it clear that we shouldn't even be here. This man is a talented artist, made tens of millions of dollars. He's not tied into all these incidents. A lot of incidents that were alleged occurred on about 2013. He played no part in that. Some defendants already pled guilty to that. He has no connection to those incidents whatsoever. He's a rap artist. Say what you want about YSL and all this other stuff, and people got tattoos of YSL. That's not what he's doing. He's making records, traveling the country, making money. Nothing to do with this so-called street game. YSL is a music label, right? And so Brian Steele has filed another motion in limine, and he's pointing to a new, fresh case that was just decided on March 5th of this year. And it came down from not any old court, not a court out of New York, not a court out of Louisiana, not a court out of California, but the Georgia Supreme Court. So essentially, Mr. Steele was saying, listen, Georgia Supreme Court spoke loud and clear about this particular issue. Now, the Georgia Supreme Court case involves a gentleman by the name of Morgan Baker. All right. Morgan Baker was found guilty for first-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison as a result of an incident that happened at a club back in 2019. The name of this club was Club Boss. Now, Mr. Baker is good friends with a recording artist that goes by No Cap. Now, look, y'all, promise me you ain't gonna talk about me. But to this day, this very hour, I have no idea what No Cap means. I never had the time to look this up. I've heard this phrase for about 3 to 5 years, and I still don't know what No Cap means. Like, I'm tripping, y'all. I'm showing my age. I gotta catch up with the times. I really don't know what No Cap means. But anyway, No Cap is an artist. I heard he's pretty good. And he was performing at a club in Houston County, Georgia. Now, I want y'all to pay close attention to Houston County because we're going to come back to that. But anyway, Morgan Baker is No Cap's friend. He's No Cap's road manager. So basically, they travel together. When No Cap's performing, Mr. Baker is right there with him, right? And so they at this club in Houston County. I've never been to Houston County. I'm not going to act like I've been to Houston County. But I'll tell you one thing. When I found out about this verdict, the guilty verdict, the first thing I wanted to know is, what are the demographics of that population in Houston County? Now, we're going to come back to that, and we're going to talk about why that's important. But keep in mind, a jury found Mr. Baker guilty. All right? And so when I heard that, and I heard the evidence that was presented, a music video where Mr. Morgan was in the music video. He was brandishing a semi-automatic firearm with an extended magazine, where No Cap is the artist in this video. They presented that evidence. And so a jury found Mr. Baker guilty as a result of this video that was presented in evidence. It was about a 30-second video. Although Mr. Baker, although he's the road manager, and all of a sudden he's all in the videos. You know what I mean? Although he do management work, he all in the videos, like Suge Knight would say. But we don't know why. We don't know what's the reason behind all that. But he was in the video, right? He was brandishing a purported firearm, all right? Because we don't know if that firearm was real or it was a prop, because this was a video. But that evidence was presented to a jury, right? And he was found guilty. Was that the only evidence? No. They also had a so-called eyewitness who identified Mr. Baker, basically saying he was the shooter. Now, let's pause right there. Every time I'm trying a case and it comes down to identity of the perpetrator, I always remind the jury, the leading cause for wrongful convictions is mistaken identity. And so we have a music video, and then we have an eyewitness. But other than that, there's not a whole lot of compelling evidence. And so when I found out about this conviction, I immediately wanted to know, what is the jurisdiction? What are the demographics of Houston County? Right? Because with that evidence, a music video and a witness who identified Mr. Baker, as we know, witnesses are flawed, they're unreliable, maybe, maybe not, and then we have a music video. So y'all, I said I need to know everything there is in terms of the demographics of Houston County. And what I learned is Houston County is 52% white. It is 31% black and 7% Hispanic. All right. We talking about Houston County, Georgia, not Houston, Texas. Okay. All right. Stark contrast. All right. In Texas, you're going to get 46% Hispanics leading everybody else. All right. So in comparison to Georgia, let's just take Atlanta, for example, Fulton County. Fulton County, we got about 43% black, 38% white. And if you look at Atlanta, Atlanta's 47% black, 40% white. So two totally different places if we talking about demographics. And listen, let me be clear. I'm not saying white folks just gonna vote people guilty. That's not what I'm saying. In fact, many cases I've tried, our whites on the jury have held my client down. I'm talking about they'll be in a minority. It'll be an issue as to whether or not my client is found guilty for second-degree murder or manslaughter or not guilty, and they'll be in the minority when a lot of blacks are being a majority voting guilty. So that's not what I'm saying. But I have to emphasize that every client, according to the law, is entitled to a fair trial among their peers. And so we're looking at the demographics in Houston County, and I'm like, oh, this sounds familiar. Because I want to know how they got to this point. Shout out to the Georgia Supreme Court for getting it right. And I'm going to break down their analysis. I'm glad they got it right. Shout out to Travis Griffin, Mr. Baker's lawyer, who appealed. I mean, mad respect for him, man. Mr. Baker lives to fight another day. This man had life in prison, and that case was overturned. And largely, the case was decided on this music video. In the Supreme Court case, they said, man, this video was the focal point of evidence for the state. The state mentioned it about 3 times during trial. They called 3 witnesses that referenced the video. And in the state's closing arguments, they talked about the video, and they talk about Mr. Baker's propensity to commit violence, just like other rap artists who have a violent predisposition. I mean, this is what's coming out in closing arguments, y'all. This is what's at stake. This has been the topic of discussion about rap lyrics, music, art, freedom of expression. All this is at the forefront in this country, right? And we have the Georgia, think about the timing, y'all. We got the Georgia Supreme Court just ruled on a case involving a music video, expression, art, music. No Cap is performing in this video. What's interesting, the first words out of No Cap is, I didn't write this music. I can't make this up. I'm serious. Go look it up. It's called Ghetto Angels. And at the very beginning, there's Mr. Baker in the video brandishing a gun. I wonder if Suge Knight saw this, man. He probably would have been like, there they go. There they go. All in the videos. Just like Diddy, all in the videos. Look at him now. See what happens? Come see us. Anyway, man, back to the case. So, you know, it's interesting because I'm still like, this actually happened. Yeah, the Supreme Court got it right, but he was found guilty. And I'm sure that's pretty scary for Mr. Baker sitting in court, seeing him in that video. I'm sure he was like, man, I can't believe this. And all I could think of is Mac Phipps, right? If you haven't heard of Mac Phipps, man, Mac Phipps is a renowned recording artist. He used to rap for No Limit. Remember No Limit? You know, back in the late 90s, early 2000s, No Limit was all on and popping in New Orleans and everywhere else in the nation. And he was one of the prolific rappers on No Limit's roster. And Mac Phipps had a gig in St. Tammany Parish. Okay, we call them parishes. Outside of Louisiana, y'all call them counties. St. Tammany Parish, y'all. I need y'all to understand where St. Tammany Parish is. St. Tammany Parish, I would say, is considered in the greater New Orleans area. Some people would call it maybe country New Orleans, right? Stark contrast, right? Nothing like the city. Nothing, all right? The demographics there are predominantly white, okay? Now, amongst members of the legal community, amongst just members of the general community, St. Tammany is known as St. Slammany, all right? Basically, if you get an arrest, if you get a charge, if you're in court, be looking to get slammed by the judge and or the jury. And before you get there, the DA gonna have something to do with it. And I'm not saying that's automatic. I'm not saying that happens in every case. I've worked with prosecutors who are very objective, who work with me. I'm not saying every case is like that. So when I get a phone call, I get one of those phone calls, Mr. Willis, I got a case. Can you come represent me? Okay, cool, man. Tell me a little bit more about your case. Where you at? Orleans Parish, Jefferson Parish, St. Landry? Where you at? East Baton Rouge? What we talking about? Man, bruh, yeah, bro, I'm in St. Tammany. I'm like, oh, okay, all right. Let's talk. I tell you what, we gonna schedule an appointment because I know this is gonna be a long conversation, and so I don't turn folks down because I know people need representation everywhere, but I already know it's an uphill battle. Back to Mr. Phipps' case, Mac Phipps was scheduled to perform at a club in St. Tammany Parish. This happened September 21st, 2001. So this was a long time ago, y'all. This was not too long after 9/11, all right? That same year. And Mac Phipps is crazy because Mac Phipps, he didn't even want to be at this club in St. Tammany Parish, but he was scheduled to be there. I think his dad was saying, come on, man, you got to go there. You're already committed. They waiting on you. And unfortunately, a guy by the name of Baron Victor was shot and killed. And listen, I don't want to take this moment to not honor Mr. Victor. You know, may he rest in peace, because I think a lot of times we talk about these crimes and sometimes we forget that somebody died, and that's unfortunate. And so although it happened a long time ago, may he still rest in peace, all right? And even the case involving Morgan Baker, the victim, his name is Tamarco Head. May he rest in peace. Mr. Victor was shot and killed, and detectives came on scene, and folks were trying to figure out who were responsible for this murder. And you better believe it, Mac Phipps' name came up. Now, of course, Mac Phipps, just like everybody else, they hurried up and got out of there. He was performing. I don't know if he was in the act of performing or maybe he just finished performing. But after all this happened, he left. He got ghost, right? And so his name came up. Now, at the time, Mac Phipps' moniker name was the Camouflage Assassin, right? So that's what he was known as, the Camouflage Assassin. He had one of his most popular songs was Murda, Murda, Kill, Kill. Now imagine that, Murda, Murda, Kill, Kill. You may have heard of it. I know I did, right? I could remember that song was a very popular song in the late 90s, man. I used to play ball for John Eric. Shout out to John Eric on the West Bank of New Orleans. And on our way to a game, we would be riding in a bus, right? We would all be in the bus, the whole team. Offense would be on one bus, defense would be on the other bus. That's just how we roll, right? We don't co-mingle. So the defense, I played defense, I played cornerback. So we on the bus and we got a different, it's a different vibe than the offense. I couldn't tell you what offense the offensive players were doing, but us, we were getting bucked up. We were getting our mind right. So that bus ride to wherever we were going, wherever that game was, it would go anywhere from real quiet, real focus. People be just in a zone. And then all of a sudden, man, somebody will start trying to get everybody pumped up, everybody riled up, getting our mind right for a game. And one of the songs we would sing would be Murda, Murda, Kill, Kill, Shish Real, Battlefield. I'm not going to say the curse word, but Shish Real, Battlefield, Murda, Murda, kill, kill, shit's real, battlefield. And so before you know it, the whole bus would be saying murder, 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 kill, 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 shit's real, battlefield. And we going to a football game, right? None of us, I never had in my mind that we talking about putting a cap in somebody, right? I mean, No Limit, they had we No Limit soldier. I thought I told you. The whole analogy was like, man, we going to war, we in the streets. It's similar to an army and all that kind of stuff. But I never looked at it as all this is real life. Nah, I know there were remnants of reality. I knew Master P, C Murda, all them came up in the Calio Project. Some would say that's a war zone in and of itself. I get that. So there were remnants of reality in their lyrics, no question about it. But I knew there were a lot of lies too. I never looked at it like that, but that's me. That's me. And so I will forever remember that memory because that would get us all bucked up, ready to go, man. We getting on that bus. And to us, it was like, it's time for war, you know? Of course, figuratively, but that was our mindset. But in this particular case, Mac Phipps, known as the Camouflage Assassin. Mac Phipps' dad was a war veteran. And so a lot of his lyrics were based on his dad's experiences. And so, again, he's the celebrity. He's well known. He's the recording artist. One of his popular songs is Murder, Murder, Kill, Kill. So he became an easy target. And so what I've learned is a lot of so-called eyewitnesses were questioned by St. Tammany law enforcement. And before you know it, guess what? People who were at that club started identifying Mac Phipps as the shooter. And coupled with those witnesses' statements was, unfortunately, Mac Phipps' reputation as a gangster rapper. Now, remember I told you where we at, what jurisdiction? We in St. Slammany. Mr. Phipps got an all-white jury. One of Mr. Phipps' popular songs was Murder, Murder, Kill, Kill. The lead prosecutor in opening statements throughout the course of the trial, in closing statements, talked about those lyrics, referenced them verbatim. Murder, murder, kill, kill. That's your defendant. That's the guy who shot the victim in this case. And then he was doing some slimy stuff because he took some lyrics out of Cell Sock, something along the lines of, if you mess with me, I'll put a cap in your head or something like that. He mixed that with Murder, Murder, Kill, Kill and said, that's your killer, pointing at Mr. Phipps. And you know what's interesting about Mr. Phipps? I got to give Mr. Phipps on because I'm not doing justice with this story. But what's fascinating, I went to a panel where he was a guest panelist at Dillard University here in New Orleans. And Mr. Phipps talked about how effective and good the prosecutor was. He said, man, I'm just sitting in my seat next to my attorney, never been convicted of any violent crimes. I'm 22 years old. I'm just making a living, right? I'm making it big with no limit, doing my thing. And I'm looking at a prosecutor say, they're your killer, murder, murder, kill, kill. I'll put a bullet in your brain and all that kind of stuff. And he was like, man, this dude is really good, because the jury eating this up and it's like, who is he talking about? And so all I could think of when Mr. Baker was sitting at that trial in Georgia and you got one person who identified him as the shooter, and you got this music video where he's not an artist, he didn't write the lyrics, he didn't produce the video, and the prosecutor is presenting that evidence and saying, there go your murderer, brandishing a gun with all these other rappers and violent offenders who all they do is glorify violence. There go your murderer right there. I could just imagine him sitting at that defense table like, oh my God. Another defendant didn't have a criminal history. He wound up taking a stand in his own defense. Y'all, in murder cases, You rarely see that. You rarely see that. I've tried a whole bunch of murder cases. I've never had a defendant take the stand. I can't even remember advising the defendant to take the stand. You probably will see them more in self-defense cases. But you rarely see a defendant take the stand for so many reasons, y'all. Being nervous, don't want to incriminate themselves, even though they're innocent. Scared to say the wrong thing. The state didn't prove their case beyond a reasonable doubt, so you don't need to get on the stand and prove your innocence. Just varying reasons why they don't have to take the stand. But lo and behold, Mr. Baker took the stand. Clean record. That's not me. What the state is trying to prove to you, that's not me. Brother, you in the wrong jurisdiction. This ain't Atlanta. This ain't New Orleans. You in Houston County. 51% white. Again, I'm not saying just because it's white, they're going to vote guilty. But I got to think a lot of people out of touch with rap culture. A lot of people can't identify with a video. A lot of folks ain't going to ask a question, well, golly, is it really a real gun? I mean, did he write this song? Did he create this video? What they talking about? Turns out the video, no cap, is honoring one of his boys who passed. Now, they brandishing guns and all that, but there was no evidence that verified that the gun Mr. Baker had was the gun used in the shooting. In fact, for all we knew, it could have been a toy gun. I mean, these are videos. I mean, you got people in this video. Go look at it. You got people in this video pointing the gun at the cameraman. I couldn't have been a cameraman. I'm sorry. I ain't signing up for that. You pointing a real gun at me, I'm not signing up for that. This is all not real. These are props. Whether it was real guns, fake guns, we'll never know. But this was a music video. There were cameras outside. I mean, could you imagine? Cut, next act. Some of y'all in the back, y'all kind of look lame, man. Y'all don't even look like y'all about the street life, man. Get your act together. Come on, cut. Come on, let's do this again, man. Some of y'all got to look hard. Look hard or go home. Look hard or go home, bro. Like, we don't got time for all that, man. Y'all tripping over there in the back. It's all a scene, an act. And so this was the evidence, y'all. But again, where this case was tried at. And so I'm looking at what the evidence is. And the Supreme Court looked at the evidence. Okay, they said, well, all right, we know there's a video. Why and how is the state tying this video to Mr. Baker? Turns out the state in the court agreed with the state. The lower court said, yeah, this proves identity. This proves Mr. Baker's identity. This proves that he knows no cap. You need a video to show that Mr. Baker knows no cap. This proves identity because he's holding a gun. What gun? Was this gun discovered to be found in a murder? No. And the Supreme Court looked at all the evidence. They said, first of all, there was no connection of Mr. Baker to this firearm. One, there was no evidence presented that Mr. Baker had a firearm on his possession on the night in question. There was no evidence that Mr. Baker regularly possessed the firearm. We know there was no evidence that the firearm Mr. Baker had in the video was the firearm used for the murder. There was no connection that Mr. Baker had anything to do with the shooting other than this video. And of course, we had an eyewitness, but we know that eyewitnesses are unreliable. Now, the Supreme Court didn't get into eyewitnesses are unreliable, but I know they had that in the back of their mind. You mean to tell me if you take this video out the picture, all we have is one, not two, not three, not four. I hear you, LeBron. You got one witness saying that's your shooter. And they kind of equivocated, right? They weren't really strong. Their testimony wasn't really compelling. So you couple that with this video and you got a guilty verdict. Bye, Mr. Baker. You done. Die in prison. Georgia got it right. They say you can't present this evidence to show this man's propensity to commit violence just because he was in this video. There's no indication that he wrote those lyrics. Now, the lyrics weren't even presented. It was just the video. Now, why is this important? Back to Brian Steele. Brian Steele is citing this case and saying, Judge, I've been screaming from the hilltops that we shouldn't be here. And I understand you ruled on this issue, and here we are. But on March 5th, 2024, this year of our Lord, the Georgia Supreme Court overturned a guilty conviction in which a music video was critical to the case. We got to pause and take a look at this, right? And Mr. Steele was saying, I'm citing this as a reason to echo and reiterate that all this evidence about videos and lyrics should be precluded from this trial. In fact, I think he may have even asked for a mistrial because of this. We need to do a do-over because a lot of evidence already came out. A lot of lyrics came out. Music videos came out. So I'm sure somewhere in that motion, maybe on the last page, he said, you know what? We need to just go ahead and have a mistrial. I don't know that to be certain, but I'm just saying now that I think about it. And so now what everybody wants to know, in light of this new case that came down from Georgia Supreme Court, what's going to happen with the YSL case? I mean, we seem to have similar issues. What's going to happen? And if I could quote my professor way back in law school, man, one of the first lessons he taught us, whenever you're answering a legal question, your first response should be, it all depends. What Professor PQ, what did you mean by it all depends? It all depends on the facts, right? The facts. We make our money as lawyers giving an analysis of cases. That's our bread and butter. That's our calling card. What makes lawyers separate themselves from the pack is the ability to give a concise analysis of these particular cases. What cases apply, what cases don't apply, and we look at the facts. And in this particular case, although we're talking about a music video, Young Thug's case is not just talking about music videos, it's talking about his lyrics. And the state is saying Young Thug's lyrics are autobiographical. This is his story. This is his life's true events. We're not just talking about Young Thug being in a video. We're talking about statements he said in his lyrics derived from real life activity. And I think that's the central part of this analysis in terms of what Judge Glanville has to review when he's reviewing the Supreme Court case. Yes, the case was overturned, but we're talking about a music video in which the defendant in that case, Mr. Baker, was not the writer of the lyrics. He didn't produce the video. He just was in the video. And I can hear Judge Glanville saying, nah, but you see this case, as it relates to Jeffrey Williams, we're not just talking about him being in a video. As such, this case doesn't apply. And I can almost hear the arguments Adrian Love will make. And I'm sure if her brief is not ready already, I can hear Adrian Love saying this is apples and oranges when we talking about the facts. And so that's what it's going to come down to. However, Brian Steele knows this too, but I can hear his rebuttal saying, no, listen, everything is talking about art, whether it's lyrics, whether it's a video, everything addresses what's on the forefront: music, art, expression, speech. So we can't just carve it and say it's just a video. The Supreme Court only had a video to consider. And so Mr. Steele is saying, all I'm saying is we might need to take a huge pause in light of the Supreme Court's ruling, and we need to expand this not just to videos, but lyrics. The Supreme Court has spoken. Judge Glanville is bound by the Supreme Court's ruling. However, Judge Glanville can get right up under that ruling if he says that doesn't apply to this particular case. It all depends on the facts. And so it's going to be very interesting. I think arguments will be made in early April on this particular issue. And I don't know, because remember, Judge Glanville said all these lyrics can conditionally come in if a foundation is established. So every lyric, Ms. Love got to lay that foundation. I think it's very wise for Mr. Steele to file that motion in limine. As defense lawyers, we got to preserve the record. We got to preserve the record. We got to keep these legal issues on ice. We can't forget about them. We can't say, well, the judge already ruled. Something happened in real time. We in the middle of trial and boom, this happened. Georgia Supreme Court. What we going to do? Kermit the Frog. Breaking news. We got to address this. And so Mr. Steele was preserving the record because, listen, we have to look at it on a trial level. As defense lawyers, we also have to be looking at any event of us losing this case, right? We could be as confident as we want to be. We could think things are going well. That was my biggest obstacle as a young attorney. Don't get too caught up in just the trial, but you also got to think about that appeal. What if we lose? That has to be on the forefront of your mind. What if we lose? Preserve this record. Make this objection. Make it clear. Don't let the state win on anything, because you never know. If we lose this case, we're going to take it up on appeal and we're going to address all these issues we objected to, all these motions we filed. Yes, the lower court did not side with us, did not rule in our favor. Think about it. That's exactly what happened in Mr. Baker's case in Houston County. His lawyer said, look, man, we can't use this video to convict this man. Lower court said, I don't see it like that. Bring this video in. Right? You should have listened to Suge Knight. All in the videos. Bring it in. But as we know, as of March 5th, the lower court was wrong. So Judge Glanville, the higher courts, whether it be the intermediate court or the Supreme Court of Georgia or even the Supreme Court of the United States, can say Judge Glanville was wrong. So you got to keep those issues on ice. So it's very, very interesting. I'm eager to hear Love's arguments. I'm interested in what the judge is going to do. Again, I'm kind of forecasting. I don't think it's going to put the trial on pause. I think Judge Glanville is going to give it deep thought, and I think he's going to give a very thorough analysis why this particular case from the Georgia Supreme Court doesn't apply. That's my 2 cents, y'all. I mean, thank y'all for giving me the time to break that down. Again, I didn't want to squeeze it in my last episode. I think it's an interesting issue. It's very pivotal. It's not only for the state of Georgia, but for this country. I mean, people are being tried for their lyrics, and everything is looked at, as my Professor PQ would say, it all depends. So every court is looking at it on a case-by-case basis as it relates to these artists. If anything, it says something loud and clear. Some of these artists have to be careful. I'm sorry it has a chilling effect on freedom of speech and freedom of expression, but look, I mean, it's making artists say, I need to think twice before I write this or I say this. I might end up in court. I might end up convicted. And it's happening. You can't really say the Supreme Court gonna get it right. If the lower court get it wrong, the Supreme Court gonna get it right. You can't say that. Mac Phipps did a lot of time. I think he did maybe 15 years or something like that before evidence came out that the so-called witnesses were forced into giving their statements. So, I mean, this thing is slippery slope, y'all. And so I'm still paying close attention to it. As you know, this thing's slow motion. It's taking its time, but I'm here for it. So listen, y'all, thanks for tuning in. I appreciate y'all time. I appreciate y'all support. Tell everybody about me. Share, like, subscribe. I'm on all major podcast platforms. Just put in Call Your First Witness. And keep supporting me, man. I appreciate the love. I'll talk to y'all later. 1.
Call your first witness. I got Kenneth Willis. He bout his business, he gon' take it the distance. Listen, he giving gaming, believing high level represent. Call your first witness. Yeah, call your first witness.
Griff has been paid for this endorsement.